Welcome to the summary of episode 10 of the Reading Finnegans Wake in 2000 Sessions podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. You know, a name is so much more than just a word, right? It's a story. But what if that story was born from, well, a case of mistaken identity, a bunch of bugs, and a pretty major royal misunderstanding? Today, we're diving into one of literature's greatest puzzles, the origin of a name right at the heart of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake. Okay, let's get right into it. At the very center of James Joyce's famously difficult book, Finnegans Wake, we find this one man. And he's a lot of things. He's a pub owner, a father, a giant, a sinner, and kind of an everyman. He's a character so huge and contradictory that he's mostly just known by his initials, HCE. So you have to wonder, what do those letters actually stand for? Today, we're going to unravel the completely bizarre and legendary story of how he got his name. It's a tale that kicks off with a royal encounter, a hilarious misunderstanding, and yes, a swarm of insects. It's really a story about how a nickname becomes a name, and then how that name becomes a legend. To really get this, we've got to go back, way back. Joyce tells us we're in this mythical time, a pre-surnames period, a time before people even had family names. We're looking for the very beginning of what he calls an occupational agnomen. Okay, so that word Joyce uses, agnomen, is absolutely key here. It's an old Roman idea, basically an extra name or a nickname that you get because of something you did or some part of your character. So we're not just looking for a name, we're hunting for the story that actually created it. All right, so picture this. It's a hot, lazy Sunday afternoon. Our hero, a guy known back then as Harold or Humphrey, is described as a grand old gardener, just peacefully doing his thing in the garden. Then, all of a sudden, a runner shows up and announces that royalty has stopped on the main road right outside. So he's in a total panic, right? He forgets everything except his duty to the king. He doesn't even have time to get a horse. He just stumbles out, face all red and sweaty, in the most ridiculous outfit you can imagine. We're talking a pith helmet, baggy pants, leg wraps, heavy boots, all while jingling the keys to his toll gate. And in his hand, he's holding this weird contraption, a pole with a flower pot stuck upside down on the top. So what on earth is this thing? Well, it might look strange to us, but it was actually a pretty common old-school trap for catching earwigs. The little bugs would crawl up the pole at night looking for shelter and, bam, get trapped in the pot. And believe it or not, this simple gardening tool is about to change his life forever. And this is where the whole story takes a turn. A king shows up, and Joyce gives us one critical detail. The king is noticeably long-sighted. In other words, he can't really see what's going on up close. He sees the gardener, but he doesn't really see him. So the king, squinting from way over there, just completely misreads the whole situation. He sees the pole and thinks, aha, a fishing rod. So instead of asking about the road, he asks this totally random question about whether certain kinds of fishing flies are good bait for trapping lobsters. And our guy's reply? Oh, it just makes things worse. He's mumbling in this super thick rural accent, and he basically says, "No, Your Majesty, I was just catching those bloody earwigs." So between the king's bad eyesight and the gardener's thick dialect, the wires get completely crossed. So let's just break this down, because this is the mix-up that changes history. What the king thinks he sees, a fisherman trying to trap lobsters with a fishing rod. The reality, a gardener catching bugs with a flower pot on a stick. It is a complete comedy of errors. But this one single comical moment of mistaken identity, this becomes the legendary source of the name that's going to define him forever. The king is literally about to turn this silly misunderstanding into history. The king, he's not mad, he actually thinks this is hilarious, so he turns to his attendants and cracks a joke. He's amazed that his local toll collector, a turnpiker, is also a fisherman, a pike baler, and, based on what he just heard, an earwigger. And just like that, with one royal pun, the name is born. But here's the thing with Joyce, right? Nothing is ever that simple. The name Earwicker isn't just a name, it's got layers. On the surface, yeah, it's literal, he catches earwigs, but it's also a pun on the German word for to awaken, which points to the book's whole theme of resurrection. And some people even think it's a clever anagram of porter, his actual job. And after this one historic moment, his identity is set in stone. It's official. All of his paperwork, all his documents, from here on out are initialed with the letters that will define him. H.C.E., Humphrey Chimpden Earwicker. But you'd think the story ends there, right? Nope, not even close. While his friends might have called him Chimbers, and the local poor knew him as Good Duck Humphrey, the general public, well, they took his initials and gave them a much, much bigger meaning. They took those 3 little letters, HCE, and they blew them up into this epic title. They transformed him from just one guy into a universal symbol. Here comes everybody. Suddenly, 3 letters contained all of humanity. And that right there is his final transformation. You see the journey, right? He goes from being a guy with a first name, to a character known for one funny incident, to just a set of initials, and finally, to here comes everybody, a true everyman, representing the shared universal experience of all of us. So, what's the big takeaway here? Through this wonderfully absurd story, Joyce is showing us that identity isn't some fixed thing you're born with. It's a narrative. It's a story that gets told and retold, put together from myths, rumors, what people think they see, and in this case, a simple royal misunderstanding. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. We've just seen how an entire identity was built from one moment of confusion. It really makes you wonder, if a name is just a story, what story does your name tell?